Christina Greb, and this is my presentation on my digital library about music and the First World War. Quick context, I have a degree in history, and my main area of interest is actually in World War One. And I've actually done a lot of research into sheet music, and I've used them for papers before. And the music to the right is actually just a fraction of my personal collection. It's more or less just the highlights. And my justification for creating this collection is uh, that I wanted to create an educational resource for educators and students. And the digital library that I have created has been designed in a way in which information and collection items are accessible to all individuals with or without musical knowledge. That last point is very important, and we'll actually come back to it later on. So for now, let's move on, and I will show you. So this is the final product of what my collection looks like. And the first thing that you'll notice is that it's very visually striking, which was very much intentional because I want it to be, in a way, kind of enticing. I want people to come into the collection and to see all these bright colors and to want to browse about and look at the different artifacts and objects here. And when you think about it, research is also a visual task as well. The things that will draw you to attention and will cause you to go even deeper and to click on these different artifacts. And something I wanted to also take in consideration when creating this was the biggest question, which is who would my audience be for this collection? I mean, you obviously have those like me who are history minded, who love history or study history, but then you also have the other side of the audience, which is those that study music or like music, either from this time period or not. So I really had to create a collection and keep that in mind. So I had to create a collection and input metadata that reflected that change in audience. So here are the fields for my collection. And while there are just typical bibliographic information that you would find anywhere basically, such as title, publisher, date, that will give you historical contextual information that is very much geared towards the history audience and the history researcher. However, like I mentioned, I also need to think about, well, what does somebody who is studying music need to find or want to find when they conduct their queries? And so what is valuable to them? So that will be things such as lyricist and composer, and those are givens really. But after reading through the articles for my bibliography, I also decided that I needed to include fields such as time signature, so 4/4 versus 6/8, and arrangement. Is it vocal? Is it piano? Are there any other instruments that would have been included in this um, song? And then chorus lyrics, which is something I'm slightly proud about. We'll talk about a little bit later. And then publication. And really, the biggest difference between that is what's the difference between a publisher and a publication. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. So we're gonna take a step back, and I'm gonna give you a brief look at the history of sheet music in a way and give you a little bit of contextual information. So there are two categories that are presented in my collection, and they're related to publication. So as you see on the left, you're going to have commercial sheet music, which that is quite obviously music that was created by a music company. It is their job to hire individuals that create lyrics or compositions of music, and then they sell it to the mass. It's a mass publication, basically. So you're going to have songs like Wisconsin Loyalty by this William Music Co. in Milwaukee. And the other hand, you're going to have vanity presses or self-publication. So that is pretty much if an individual has the money, and if they have either the lyrics or they might have the song or they might have both, they could publish their own song if they wanted to and get a certain amount of copies to hand out to their friends or family or whatever, or they could pay someone at a music company to create the song for them and then distribute it. So the vanity press, those are a little bit more easier to notice because if you take a look at the right, it says words and music by Chaz A. Arthur, and then it also says published by Chaz A. Arthur. So those are the two differences. They both give contextual historical information and a little bit more insight into who is publishing these different types of music. So that was something that I wanted to include. And then here's just a quick example of what the time signatures look like in two different examples of sheet music from the collection. So on one hand you have 2/4, the other hand you have 6/8. So if you think about it, if you had a musical student coming up to you saying that they have a performance coming up and they need a song and a certain time signature, this could be a good way to shuffle through all the different types of music. And then here is the last metadata field I added that was related to music, and that was chorus lyrics. And so if somebody doesn't know the title of a song, or if they can't off the top of their head maybe even think of what the sheet music cover looks like, there's always a potential you can remember part of the song. I only included the chorus lyrics just based off of I don't know, I feel like my personal experience that I feel like I would know lyrics from the chorus more than I would the rest of the song. So those were added onto the end. And as you can see, here's the object description for our flags. Our flag is there. This is basically what it looks like in the collection. And then I was actually able to perform a search where I just typed in the term lads because I knew that that was one of the words in the lyrics for Keep the Home Fires Burning. And once again, I was just really glad that it did pop up. I'm glad it worked out in the end. So in the end, here are the facets that were chosen for the collection on the side. So publisher, subject, and publication. I tried to add one more, but Content DM just was not having it. I don't know if anybody else has been having that problems, but it just did not like me. And the publisher, once again, this goes back to the historical context of sheet music and how it differs from commercial and self-publication. So that's why you have publisher and publication both on there. Additionally, with publisher, just for historical context and some information about sheet music in a way, that's why I also wanted to include publisher, because if you take a look at number 2, there is Leo Feist, and he has 2 pieces of sheet music in this collection. The first song that you'll see on the left is I Didn't Raise My Boy to Be a Soldier, which is the quintessential pacifist song from World War I. This was before America got into the war. And if you notice, it's published by Leo Feist, who also published Katie, as you notice on the right, which is very much a war song that was sung by the soldiers and sailors. So really, the personal beliefs were not held by the publisher. They were just there to disseminate the music and to make money. And the feelings were really just held by those who actually wrote the lyrics. So Alfred Burnham over here was a pacifist. In addition to the sheet music, I included supplemental items that give additional contextual information to World War I and its music. So I included a lecture from the Library of Congress on World War I and sheet music. And I also created objects and artifacts that I felt would create an emotional connection between the songs. So, I mean, it's one thing to actually listen or read the lyrics of the sheet music, but it's another thing to actually, hear a recording from that time period. And then it's also another thing to see these postcards of people in the bands, or to see the propaganda, which sheet music, in a way, the covers are propaganda, little propaganda in and of itself. So finally, to basically wrap up, how would I evaluate this digital library? One of the articles that I read was about the In Harmony sheet music collection from Indiana. They did a case study where they analyzed queries performed by users of their digital collection. And this is something that I would also prefer to do with the digital library, which it could be done through a survey. So basically, with that, one of the conditions would be capturing information about the user and asking them what their background is in. So I would preferably like an equal amount of individuals who are just history users next to music users, and basically see what information is useful to them and any fields that need to be added or need to be changed. So that wraps up my presentation. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a good rest of finals. Bye.